Is this aggressive? Yeah, it is. It's called aggressive compassion. That's what it is. Something I learned also in life, if you want to really help someone in a true way, you have to be a true friend. And a true friend sometimes actually takes a very strong stand for their friend, which makes them very uncomfortable. And that's called aggressive compassion. This is aggressive compassion for the Egyptians, for the Syrians, for the Jordanians, for any of the neighbors that we have. That's what it is. Ultimately, this serves everyone best. And that's what we need to realize. Why did World War II happen? World War II came about because World War I ended in a truce. And in that truce, Germany didn't realize that they lost the war. So they started another one. And another very important point is that we cannot entrust our lives to anyone, which means that we respect anyone or everyone. We don't respect anyone, but we respect everyone, but we trust God, which means that when we need defensive depth, we do not rely on the UN saying we're going to put a whatever they call those groups there in order to protect you and you can rely on us. Because the land in war is the most vital currency. It's a very valuable currency. In Israel in particular, every single inch is critical to Israel's security. Because literally, we don't have, if citizens are living 10 miles from the border, imagine if we had 10 miles on October 7th, that would have helped us enormously. But we don't have 10 miles. We don't even have a mile from the border, which makes this all the more critical, and that's the reason why every single city in Israel is considered to be within reach of the border, and therefore any single threat we deal with by taking the army and attacking because it's actually a threat, even if we know they're coming from something insignificant, which is never the case, of course. During the War of Independence, Israel made a point of capturing strategic land. Why were they capturing strategic land? Because they needed that simply to defend themselves. That's the reason why. Because land is so critical to the Jewish people. And here's a very interesting thing. The former chief rabbi of England, that means before Rabbi Sachs, who many know, was a rabbi, Lord Rabbi Jacobovitz. And the Rebbe corresponded to him about Israel and what our position according to halacha, according to Jewish law, should be. And he stated to him something very simple. He said, Yitzhak Rabin, right, who was a former military person before he became a prime minister. At that time, when the Rebbe was corresponding, he was in the army. Moshe Dayan, and every military expert says returning land endangers lives. Every military expert agrees that to return land endangers lives. That means that every agreement, of land for peace is threatening Jewish lives. If military experts say that giving back land makes us more vulnerable, even just from a strategic point of view, then that means giving back land is threatening Jewish lives, and that means it's absolutely forbidden for Israel to ever give back an inch of land for one reason. Why? Not because it's the Holy Land, not because we're Zionists, but because it's a threat to Jewish lives. Very simple. It's a threat to Jewish lives, and therefore the Torah forbids it. Now, I don't want to go into the entire situation that happened with Egypt, where we gave back Sinai for peace with Egypt. That is not at all a black and white situation, but I don't want to discuss that now. Many people think that was an amazing peace treaty. Were we to follow what the Torah tells us, we would be in a far, far better position than we are right now. Gaza would not have any of the concrete to make the tunnels or all of the ammunition that they have and the missiles that they have today, if not for Egypt bordering with Gaza. I could use many other examples of all of the other failed land for peace treaties that were done in arguing that it worked for Egypt, so it'll work in other places as well. That's a number of reasons why it was terrible. But the Oslo Accords, the Gaza disengagement, these were terrible, terrible, terrible failures. Like horrific failures that cost us so many lives. So we have to remember this. And the Camp David Accords, which was the peace treaty with Egypt, is what ultimately led to pressure for future concessions, which led to the death and maiming, the death of thousands of lives and the maiming of thousands of Israelis, of Jews. This is actually to the extent that the Rebbe argued, Rabbi Jakovitz was saying that, we can give back land for peace, but, the old city of Jerusalem we can never give back. Why did he differentiate the old city of Jerusalem? It's a holy city, right? The old city of Jerusalem. You know what the Rebbe said? If giving back land will in fact create peace and safety for Jewish lives, we give back anything. Because Jewish life precedes anything. It's our highest value. And if giving back land doesn't save lives, we can't give back anything, even if it's not biblical Israel. Because it's a matter of safety. That's the key point over here. And if we pay close attention, we will notice, I believe, that October 7th is a direct consequence of not adhering to these rules. Hamas was allowed to build tunnels, amass weapons. Previous operations against Hamas were never completed, always ended in a ceasefire. And Gaza itself is a strategic position. How in the world did we give that back? We violated every law in the Torah, and tragically, we've suffered from the results of it. There's one last point in this segment, and that is who decides these matters? Who decides whether it's a threat to lives? Who decides whether we finished the job? All of these matters. The answer is very simple. It must be decided by one group and one group only, and they are military experts who are making the decisions based on military perspective, not on diplomatic perspective. It must be military people making the decision based on military perspective. So if a general says we should really preemptively strike, but we won't get support from the U.S., that is not a military decision. That's a diplomatic decision. It's got to be made by military people based on what the military believes needs to be done, and that's how it's decided. If someone just called me up, texted me a couple of days ago. They told me that their spouse in a certain situation, and they want to know if their spouse has to fast on Yom Kippur. What did I tell them to do? I said, call your spouse's doctor and ask the doctor if they feel that he's up to fasting. If the doctor says he isn't, then find out the minimum amount that they need to either eat or drink or whatever it may be, and that's what they should do. Right? Now, why didn't I answer the question? Because the rabbi for a medical question is a doctor, not a rabbi. And the rabbi for a military question is a military man. So we ask military people. And they're the only people who have the right to answer that question. Anyone else? It's like, do we go to the hospital director to ask him about the medical ethics of a certain matter when someone's life is on the line? No, you go to the doctor and ask him. That would be the same idea. Only military experts based on security should be making these decisions. So let's talk now about another big element here, and that's the world. Talk about the world. There's always pressure. There's always pressure. When do our values permit us to yield due to pressure? Well, so let's just review. We're going to review the rules, Torah rules, okay? Rule number 1. The land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. Why? Because God gave it to us. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, we must eliminate all security threats. Anyone that threatens the security of Israel, we preemptively eliminate. We're obligated to do that. It's an obligation. It's not something that we're permitted to do. We're obligated to do. We must conclude all missions only after unequivocal defeat of the enemy, not a moment earlier. And we never cede control over strategic positions, which means we never give back land in the case of Israel. Any of these matters that we get pressure on, we say, I'm sorry. We have nothing to discuss regarding these matters. Our hands are tied. We follow our value system, and we will not violate that. We can discuss many other things, but not that. The Rebbe discussed numerous times, this is a very important point, the physics of pressure. You know how the physics of pressure works? This is how it works. When pressure is successfully applied, pressure increases and grows. You ever notice that? So what do you do when there's pressure? You put a wall in front of it, because if you accede to it, it will just become stronger. It's dangerous to compromise even a bit. And that's the reason why I said earlier, the moment I answer the question of how many, that someone answers the question, how many times a week do you beat your wife? You're already in deep water. The moment I start trying to prove how this is my child, I'm already in deep water. And the moment I try to explain why Israel belongs to the Jewish people, I'm in deep water. It's not up for discussion. The land belongs to the Jewish people. You can take it up with God. Sounds radical? So call me a radical. Call me whatever you want. It's not my land. It's land that was given to me. I have no right to negotiate it, and I won't. And holding land will not lead to an existential threat, but compromising land will. Do you know that compromising land will lead to an existential threat? If you don't, you haven't woken up yet. October 7th is the existential threat that's just rising up now, right? Lebanon, Iran, it's just rising up now. We are under an existential threat. We cannot give back 1 inch of land. Giving back land is the threat to our existence. Standing up to pressure doesn't require arrogance. It doesn't even require boldness. You can do it with a smile. You say, that's a nice idea, but it's just not going to work. Why not? We can't do that. It's not on the table for us. Right? Say it nicely. It doesn't have, if it requires boldness, do it boldly. If it requires sweetness, do it sweetly. Right? But it's just, I know who I am. I know what my values are. There's nothing to discuss. Very simple. And if there is something we can discuss, by all means, we're open to discuss it. But these points we can't discuss. We're close allies. Let's talk about the United States. We're very close allies with the United States, thank God. America is a Medina Shel Chesed. That's a country of kindness. The Rebbe spoke about America many times that way with tremendous gratitude, and we should all have gratitude to the United States of America. This country is a great country and has done great good for the world. Despite all of the problems that we have. I'm familiar, I watch the news too, right? But despite all of that, there's a reason why we're all here, okay? America does give Israel billions of dollars. Even the presidents that you hate most, whoever they may be, right, have given billions of dollars to Israel, and advanced weaponry, and loan guarantees. All of the things are very vital to Israel. They veto UN Security Council votes about once a week, right? And they give us very strong political support. What's the price for that? There's a price for everything. What's the price for that? Pressure. That's what the price is. Price is pressure. Pressure for peace, pressure to cede land, pressure for ceasefires, pressure for restraint. And we've all witnessed this over the last 9 months, but it's not new. This is the relationship we have with America. What do we do? So what do we do about the pressure? We just stand up to the pressure. We thank, it's like someone gives you a gift and then they demand something of you. I appreciate the gift and I won't do that. Right? I have this as a rabbi. People sometimes, they give big donations and then they want me to do something which I won't do. I just tell them I won't do that. Either I will see a donation from them again or I won't see a donation from them again. But one thing I do know, I'm not doing that. That's not something I do. Very simple. Right? We don't risk lives. That's a red line. And we say that. And what happens when we're offered security guarantees if we comply? What do? you don't comply. It's very simple. It's simple. It's really, really simple. And it's easy when every single Jew knows this and stands for it. And it's important to know something also, that U.S. assurances are not always honored. I'm not saying this as a criticism of the U.S., although it probably is, right? But I'm just saying I'm saying more as an observation. 1956, the Sinai War. America induced Israel to retreat. And they said that anyone that will block the Straits of Tiran, we will consider that as a declaration of war. 1967, Egypt blocked the Straits. What did America do? They yelled at Israel to restrain themselves. That's what they did. What happened to your guarantee? We're not sure. New administrations, things change, the mood changes, whatever it is, doesn't make a difference. But it's not reliable, right? By the way, in 1994, you may be familiar with the Budapest Memorandum, right? Ukraine gave up their nuclear stockpile for Russian agreement to never threaten them. You know who assured that? America. How'd that work out? Right? So we cannot rely on assurances. We cannot rely on assurances. So how do we manage this very important relationship that we have while following our principles? So number one is we have to know this. Okay? Again, we need to know. The strongest ally that America has in the Middle East is Israel. The weaker Israel is, the weaker America is. The stronger Israel is, the stronger America is. Begin to think about the relationship in a reverse. America is far greater than Israel in size, right? In whatever, economy, whatever, however you want to measure it, right? Way, way, way greater than Israel. However, America needs Israel, and we need to know that America needs Israel. And that when we are strong, even though America is complaining about our strength, America has a stronger ally. And then in a few weeks from now, or a few months from now, America will slap us on the back and say, thank you for bombing that Iraqi nuclear reactor, even though we condemned you in the UN. They will do that. Another thing is that the U.S. wants to be a geopolitical problem solver. That's really what they want to be. They need to exert pressure sometimes. And sometimes, and we know this from U.S. politicians, that sometimes they exerted pressure hoping Israel would not give in to that pressure, but they had to do it politically. We have to realize sometimes they're doing their job. Let them do their job. But make sure you're doing your job. Are we doing our job? That's what we need to make sure we're doing. In 1991, in Madrid, Yitzhak Shamir, who is a right-winger, a very strong prime minister, said, you know what, they want to talk about autonomy. I'll go and I'll only talk. We'll go into conversation about it. You know what that led to? Autonomy. That's what it led to. It led to Israel giving up power. Because the beginning of the negotiation is when the pressure now has a place to go. And it only gets stronger. We cannot even begin that conversation. I want to bring out one other very important point. One thing that the Rebbe also strongly encourages is that Israel create irreversible changes. Because once it's irreversible, it can no longer be negotiated. Which, by the way, is what I do in my life. I put myself in positions that I'm commit myself to doing something, even though it's a very difficult thing to do. I believe in it, but I'm not, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sustain myself in doing it. And once I'm committed to it, I'm stuck. It's an irreversible change. I made a commitment. Now I'm in, and guess what? I end up accomplishing something otherwise I would never accomplish. That's exactly what the Rebbe told Israel to do. Do things which are irreversible. Once they're done, they're done. You know that Israel's nuclear power, right, was vehemently opposed by a JFK. Vehemently opposed. For many, many years. And what did Israel argue? That it's an existential need and it's not negotiable. Guess what? Are we still talking to the United States? Do we have nuclear power? Is it a real good thing that we have nuclear power? And guess what? We are also not a member of the NPT or the IAEA. We are not members of those organizations. There's no oversight on Israel's nuclear power. No one knows what we have. Because when you stand strong, you know what a red line is and you stand by it, the world will accept it. should try this in your business negotiations, by the way. It works. And so let's conclude. What should we be doing now? We should really begin by asking ourselves how we should think. We have to look, number one, we have to take a deep look at our connection to the land and who we are, and realize what our real relationship connection to the land is. And we need to encourage Israel's leaders to follow everything the Rebbe encouraged them to do, which is to follow basically Torah law, what the Torah teaches us. Because the Rebbe's experience tragically was that they often did not follow. In 1972, I'm going to skip the video of Rabin talking about it just because of time, but in 1972, Yitzchak Rabin, he was then the ambassador